November 3, 1942. Captured British Field Headquarters, 15 kilometers west of El Alamein, Egypt. Major Dieter Hoffmann of the Wehrmacht's Technical Intelligence Service knelt in the sand beside what appeared to be a child's toy masquerading as a military vehicle. The small, boxy machine had been abandoned by retreating British forces, left behind with a thrown track and empty fuel tank. Its olive drab paint was covered in desert dust, its canvas top torn by shrapnel, its flat hood dented from what looked like 100 rough miles of North African terrain. Hoffmann, 34 years old, held a doctorate in mechanical engineering from the Technical University of Berlin. He had spent the previous 3 years examining captured enemy equipment across Europe, French tanks, British artillery, Soviet weapons, cataloging their capabilities, identifying their weaknesses, reporting on their industrial methods. He approached each analysis with Prussian thoroughness and professional detachment. But this vehicle, this peculiar little machine that Americans called a jeep, would prove different from anything he had examined before. "Sir," Unteroffizier Klaus Weber said, walking around the vehicle with undisguised contempt, "this is what you pulled me from depot work to examine? It's a motorized wheelbarrow. Look at it, no armor, no weapons mount, barely any cargo capacity. The Americans sent this garbage to fight the Afrika Korps." Hoffmann didn't respond immediately. He was studying the vehicle with the intensity he usually reserved for enemy tanks or artillery pieces. Something about its proportions, its design, suggested more thought than Weber's dismissal indicated. The vehicle was small, less than 11 feet long, barely 5 feet wide, perhaps 5 feet tall to the top of the windshield frame. It weighed, he estimated, less than a ton. Compared to German military vehicles, it was absurdly tiny. But German vehicles had become increasingly scarce in North Africa. The Afrika Korps was running on fumes, supplied by convoys that Italian and German naval forces struggled to protect across the Mediterranean. Rommel's offensive capabilities had withered not from British tactical brilliance but from simple lack of fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. Meanwhile, British and American forces seemed to have unlimited supplies of everything. "Weber," Hoffmann said quietly, "fetch the tool kit. We're taking this apart." What Major Hoffmann discovered over the next 3 days would force him to write the most disturbing intelligence report of his career. Not about a weapon that could destroy German tanks, but about a philosophy of logistics that made German supply methods look medieval by comparison. The jeep wasn't a weapon. It was something more dangerous, evidence of industrial thinking that Germany couldn't match. The vehicle bore a small data plate on its dashboard, Willys Overland Model MB, serial number 159432, contract W398, QM 3906. Hoffmann photographed everything, measured every component, documented every design feature. Then they began disassembly. The engine came out first. A 4-cylinder gasoline motor displacing 134.2 cubic inches, rated at 60 horsepower. Nothing impressive by German standards, the Volkswagen Kübelwagen used by German forces had a similar power output. But as Hoffmann examined the Jeep engine, he noted details that troubled him. Every bolt was standardized. Not similar, not approximately the same, identical. The head bolts, the main bearing caps, the oil pan screws, all used the same thread pitch and head size. Weber could remove the entire engine using just 3 wrench sizes. German military vehicles required dozens of specialized tools because every manufacturer used different standards. The spark plugs were all identical, interchangeable, marked with a simple part number. The same type used in countless American engines. German vehicles used different spark plug types for different engines, different manufacturers, different production batches. Hoffmann had seen German mechanics searching for hours to find the correct plug for a specific vehicle. But the real revelation came when they examined the engine block casting. Stamped into the metal was Continental Motors, Muskegon, Michigan. Hoffmann knew Continental, they were an engine manufacturer. But he also knew that Willys Overland was the primary Jeep manufacturer. Why would a Continental engine be in a Willys vehicle? That night, Hoffmann radioed headquarters requesting any intelligence on American Jeep production. The response came 2 days later, compiled from prisoner interrogations, captured documents, and agent reports from neutral countries. What it revealed made Hoffmann read the message 3 times before he believed it. The Jeep was being manufactured by multiple companies using identical specifications. Willys Overland built Jeeps in Toledo, Ohio. Ford Motor Company built identical Jeeps in Detroit. The engines came from both Willys and Continental Motors. The transmissions came from Warner Gear, Spicer, and Borg-Warner. The transfer cases from Spicer. The axles from Spicer and Timken. The bodies were built by Willys, Ford, and American Central Manufacturing. Every component was standardized to the point where any part from any manufacturer would fit any Jeep, regardless of who assembled the final vehicle. An engine from Continental would bolt into a Willys chassis. A Ford transmission would fit a Willys Jeep. A Willys body would fit a Ford frame. The entire vehicle was designed around the principle of complete interchangeability. Hoffmann had seen nothing like this in German military production. Each German manufacturer, Daimler-Benz, Opel, Volkswagen, designed their own vehicles to their own specifications. Parts were rarely interchangeable even between vehicles of the same model from the same factory but different production runs. German military workshops maintained enormous inventories of manufacturer-specific, model-specific, sometimes even serial number-specific parts. The Americans had designed a military vehicle like they designed ammunition, every round identical, every component interchangeable, every unit replaceable by any other unit regardless of source. Over the following week, as Hoffmann's team continued their analysis, the implications became more disturbing. They discovered that the Jeep contained exactly 4,568 separate parts, counting every bolt, screw, washer, and wire clip. Complex enough to require sophisticated manufacturing, simple enough to be mass-produced. The design had been optimized not for performance or comfort, but for production volume and field maintenance. The chassis was a simple ladder frame, 2 parallel rails connected by crossmembers. Nothing sophisticated, but easy to manufacture and repair. The body was flat stamped panels, simple curves, minimal compound shapes. Any reasonably equipped metalworking shop could reproduce body panels. The suspension used simple semi-elliptic springs, technology from the previous century, but reliable and easy to repair with basic tools. Most tellingly, the vehicle had virtually no parts that required precision machining. The Germans built vehicles with tolerances measured in hundredths of millimeters, requiring skilled machinists and precision equipment. The Jeep was built with tolerances measured in millimeters, loose by German standards, but adequate for the purpose and achievable by semi-skilled workers using less sophisticated machinery. "It's crude," Weber observed, examining the welded body seams. "Look at these welds, rough, unfinished. In Germany, this would fail quality inspection." "Yes," Hoffmann agreed quietly, "but it works. And more importantly, they can build thousands of these with the same resources we use to build hundreds of our vehicles." The captured vehicle's serial number, 159,432, meant this was the 159,432nd Jeep produced under that particular contract. Hoffmann requested intelligence on total American Jeep production. The response, when it came, seemed impossible. American factories had produced approximately 100,000 Jeeps in 1941. Production in 1942 would reach 220,000 units. Projections for 1943 suggested 350,000 vehicles. By war's end, American intelligence estimated production would exceed 640,000 Jeeps total. Germany's total military vehicle production in 1942, including trucks, cars, motorcycles, and half-tracks, would reach approximately 70,000 units. The Americans were producing more of this one standardized vehicle type than Germany produced of all vehicle types combined. But the numbers that truly devastated Hoffmann came from captured American logistics manuals. The Jeep's maintenance manual, intended for semi-trained soldiers in field conditions, documented something unprecedented. Complete engine replacement in 2 hours using basic hand tools. Transmission replacement in 1 hour. Axle replacement in 45 minutes. Transfer case replacement in 30 minutes. German vehicles required workshop facilities, specialized tools, and trained mechanics for major component replacement. The Jeep was designed so that relatively unskilled soldiers could swap entire assemblies in field conditions. No complex diagnosis, no precision adjustment, remove bad component, install new component, continue operations. This philosophy extended to the repair parts system. Hoffmann found a captured American supply document listing line item designations for Jeep parts. Every component had a standardized part number that was identical regardless of manufacturer. A mechanic could requisition Jeep engine and receive an engine from any supplier that would fit perfectly. German mechanics had to specify manufacturer, model, variant, and often production series to get the correct part. The implications for logistics were staggering. An American supply depot could stock one type of engine, one type of transmission, one type of axle, and service every Jeep in theater. A German depot needed to stock parts for Volkswagen Kübelwagens, Opel Blitz trucks, Mercedes-Benz staff cars, BMW motorcycles, various half-track variants, each with manufacturer-specific parts that weren't interchangeable. By late November 1942, as Rommel's forces retreated across North Africa with fuel exhaustion and mechanical breakdowns claiming more vehicles than British action, Hoffmann compiled his report. He titled it, Technical Analysis of U.S. Army Truck, 1/4 ton, 4x4, Type Designation MB/GPW. The report was 47 pages of technical specifications, engineering drawings, and logistics analysis. The final section, Strategic Implications, was the most troubling he had ever written. The vehicle itself is unremarkable. By German engineering standards, it is crude, uncomfortable, and minimally equipped. A German engineer would never design such a vehicle as it violates numerous principles of automotive excellence. But this misses the point entirely. The Americans did not design the best possible military vehicle. They designed the most producible military vehicle that met minimum requirements. Every design decision prioritizes production volume, maintenance simplicity, and parts interchangeability over performance or refinement. The results are profound. Production volume. American factories produce this single vehicle type in numbers exceeding Germany's total military vehicle production. The standardized design allows multiple manufacturers to produce identical vehicles using distributed component suppliers. Logistics efficiency. Complete parts interchangeability means supply chains can be simplified to a degree impossible with German vehicles. One set of spare parts serves every vehicle. One maintenance manual covers all variants. One training program prepares mechanics for all units. Field maintenance. The modular design allows component-level replacement by semi-skilled personnel in field conditions. German vehicles require factory-level repairs for major component failures. American vehicles can swap entire engines, transmissions, or axles at battalion level. Strategic mobility. The 1/4 ton capacity is deceptive. These vehicles are everywhere in American formations. They serve as command vehicles, reconnaissance platforms, supply carriers, ambulances, communication centers, and weapons platforms. American divisions have organic transport capacity that exceeds what German corps commanders can access. Most troubling is what this vehicle represents. The Americans are applying mass production techniques, pioneered in their automotive industry, to military logistics on a scale we have never attempted. They have designed standardization into every level of their military supply system. I compared this vehicle to captured Soviet trucks and British vehicles. All show similar design philosophy: adequate performance, maximum producibility, complete interchangeability. This is not coincidence. It is systematic industrial thinking applied to military logistics. Germany cannot match this approach. Our industrial tradition emphasizes craftsmanship, quality, and engineering excellence. We build superb individual vehicles, but we cannot build them in the quantities our enemies achieve, and our logistics system requires exponentially more resources to maintain. Recommendation: we are losing the logistics war, not because of any single engagement or tactical failure, but because our enemies have designed military supply systems that we cannot match with our current industrial methods. The Jeep is not a weapon. It is evidence of an industrial philosophy that will defeat us if we cannot adapt. Hoffmann's report reached Wehrmacht headquarters in December 1942. It was read, analyzed, filed, and ultimately ignored. German industry couldn't simply abandon decades of engineering tradition and adopt American mass production methods. The industrial infrastructure, worker training, manufacturing culture, and design philosophy were too different. But Hoffmann's analysis proved prescient. As American forces increased their presence in North Africa, then invaded Sicily and Italy, then landed in Normandy, German commanders found themselves facing an enemy with mobility and logistics capacity that seemed unlimited. After the war, captured German documents revealed the extent to which the Jeep had come to symbolize American industrial superiority. A February 1944 intelligence summary from Army Group West included this assessment: American infantry divisions possess more organic motor transport than German panzer divisions. This is not exaggeration. We have documented actual vehicle counts through prisoner interrogations and captured documents. A typical American infantry division has approximately 2,200 motor vehicles of all types. Of these, roughly 450 to 600 are Jeeps serving in various roles. The division can move its entire infantry complement by truck, maintain continuous supply from corps-level depots, and relocate command posts dozens of kilometers in hours. A German infantry division has approximately 500 motor vehicles, heavily dependent on horse-drawn transport for artillery and supplies. Movement of the division requires rail transport or extended road marches. Supply is continuous struggle. More disturbing, American vehicle density continues to increase. Recent prisoner interrogations indicate newer divisions have even more vehicles. The Americans are mechanizing faster than we can track. The small vehicles they call Jeeps are particularly problematic. They appear everywhere, serving roles we would assign to motorcycles, horses, or foot messengers. But their four-wheel drive allows them to operate in terrain where motorcycles cannot function. They carry more than horses. They are faster than foot messengers. We have captured dozens of these vehicles. Maintenance companies report they are remarkably reliable despite crude construction. Parts are completely interchangeable regardless of manufacturing source. We have installed Ford engines in Willys chassis, Willys transmissions in Ford vehicles without any fitting required. This standardization is unprecedented in our experience. More concerning, prisoners report these vehicles are considered expendable. American units that lose vehicles in combat receive replacements within days. We found one captured document showing a quartermaster depot in England stocking 3,000 Jeeps as routine inventory. 3,000 vehicles in one depot, more than an entire German corps possesses. By 1944, the Jeep had become a symbol of American logistic superiority in German military consciousness. Soldiers called them America Wagon, American cars, and their presence was reported with the same concern as tank sightings, not because the vehicles themselves were dangerous, but because their ubiquity indicated an enemy with supply capacity that Germany couldn't match. Lieutenant Hans Meller, commanding a grenadier company in Normandy, wrote in his diary on June 15, 1944, "The Americans advance in a cloud of vehicles, jeeps everywhere, carrying officers, towing trailers of ammunition, mounting machine guns, pulling artillery pieces, evacuating wounded. We counted 47 of these vehicles supporting one American company. 47 vehicles for a unit smaller than my own, and we have 3 trucks for the entire battalion when they work. They waste vehicles like we waste rifle bullets. One jeep with minor damage, reparable, was pushed aside and abandoned. The crew simply requisitioned another. When I asked a prisoner why they didn't repair it, he looked confused and said repairs would take hours. Better to get a new vehicle, as if vehicles were ammunition, available from supply dumps in unlimited quantities. This is not an army. This is an industrial system that happens to wear uniforms. The industrial system Muller described operated on principles that German logistics couldn't match. By 1944, the United States was producing approximately 3,200 jeeps per day at peak production. This single vehicle type exceeded Germany's total daily production of all military vehicles combined. The production system itself demonstrated American industrial capacity. The Jeep assembly line at the Willys plant in Toledo employed approximately 14,000 workers and produced one vehicle every 80 seconds. Components arrived from over 1,500 suppliers across the United States, each producing standardized parts that met military specifications regardless of who manufactured them. This distributed production model provided resilience that German centralized manufacturing couldn't match. If the Toledo plant was bombed, impossible given American homeland security, but hypothetically, the Ford plant in Detroit continued production without interruption. If Continental Motors couldn't supply engines, Willys built their own engines from identical specifications. The system was designed to be disruption-proof. The Jeep's design also revealed something about American military philosophy that troubled German analysts. The vehicle was designed for the minimum capability required for military utility, not for excellence. It was uncomfortable, the suspension was harsh, the seats Spartan, the ride rough. It was noisy. The engine lacked sound insulation, the body rattled, the wind noise was severe. It was crude, the interior was bare metal, the instruments minimal, the controls basic. But it worked reliably, required minimal maintenance, could be repaired by semi-skilled mechanics, operated in extreme conditions, and most importantly, could be built in enormous quantities by factories that had never previously produced military equipment. This good-enough philosophy was alien to German engineering culture. German vehicles were designed to be as good as possible within resource constraints. They featured sophisticated engineering, quality materials, precision manufacturing, and attention to detail that made them superior individual products. But they took longer to build, required more skilled labor, needed more sophisticated supply chains, and were harder to maintain. The American approach sacrificed individual excellence for system performance. Each Jeep was merely adequate, but American forces had so many Jeeps that individual vehicle quality became irrelevant. If one broke down, another was available immediately. If one was destroyed, another arrived within days. The military system didn't depend on any individual vehicle's excellence. It depended on having overwhelming quantities of adequate vehicles. Major Hoffmann encountered this philosophy repeatedly as he examined other captured American equipment. The M1 Garand rifle, designed for mass production with loose tolerances but absolute reliability. The M4 Sherman tank, inferior to German tanks in direct combat but produced in numbers that made individual inferiority irrelevant. The C-47 transport aircraft, a converted civilian design, crude but reliable and built by the thousands. In March 1943, Hoffmann was assigned to examine captured American logistics documents from Tunisia. What he found confirmed his worst fears about the scale of American industrial mobilization. One document was a supply manifest for a single American infantry division operating in North Africa. The weekly supply requirement, listed in astonishing detail, included *600,000 gallons of gasoline, *65,000 gallons of diesel fuel, *2,500 gallons of oil and lubricants, *350 tons of ammunition, all types, *840 tons of food, *15 tons of spare parts, vehicles, *8 tons of spare parts, weapons, *12 tons of medical supplies, *45 tons of construction materials, *120 tons of miscellaneous supplies. Hoffmann compared this to supply allocations for a German infantry division. The American division received approximately 3 times the fuel, 5 times the ammunition, twice the food, and 10 times the spare parts. This wasn't a special offensive preparation, it was routine weekly supply for normal operations. More disturbing was how these supplies arrived. The document referenced Motor Transport Company, Quartermaster. Units operating 120 trucks each, making daily supply runs from corps-level depots to division supply points. The trucks were standardized 2.5-ton models, all using the same engines, the same transmissions, the same parts. Supply was continuous, predictable, systematic. German divisions received supplies by a combination of rail transport, when available, horse-drawn wagons, and occasional truck convoys operating mixed vehicle types that required different fuels, parts, and maintenance procedures. Supply was irregular, unpredictable, often inadequate. But the document that most disturbed Hoffmann was a field maintenance manual for American logistics units. It described a 3-tier maintenance system designed for industrial efficiency. First echelon, unit-level maintenance by vehicle operators. Simple tasks, oil changes, filter replacement, basic adjustments. Required no specialized training. Second echelon, battalion-level maintenance by mechanics with basic training. Component-level replacement, swap engines, transmissions, axles using modular assemblies. Required basic tools and semi-skilled labor. Third echelon, depot-level maintenance by skilled technicians. Complete rebuilding or specialized repairs. Located in rear areas with sophisticated equipment. The key was that most repairs happened at first and second echelon, in field conditions by soldiers with minimal training. The modular design of American vehicles meant that complex diagnosis and repair was unnecessary. If an engine didn't work, replace the engine. If a transmission failed, replace the transmission. The removed components were sent to depots for rebuilding or scrapping. German maintenance required skilled mechanics for most repairs. Engines couldn't simply be swapped. They required fitting, adjustment, synchronization. Transmissions needed specialized tools and training. Even simple repairs often required workshop facilities. German divisions spent enormous resources maintaining their limited vehicle fleets, and still mechanical availability rarely exceeded 60 to 70%. American divisions maintained vehicle availability above 90% using semi-skilled mechanics and standardized replacement parts. The logistics system prioritized operational vehicles over perfect repairs. Better to swap a component and get the vehicle running than to perfectly repair the original component over several days. By mid-1943, Hoffmann had compiled enough intelligence to write a comprehensive assessment of American logistics philosophy. His report, Analysis of American Military Supply Methods, was 83 pages documenting how thoroughly Germany was being out-organized. The German military supply system is based on careful allocation of limited resources. We calculate requirements precisely, ship supplies efficiently, and use materials conservatively. This made sense when Germany fought enemies with similar resource constraints. The American military supply system is based on overwhelming abundance. They calculate requirements, then ship twice that amount to ensure no unit ever runs short. They don't allocate supplies carefully. They flood the theater with excess material. They don't conserve resources, they use them lavishly and requisition more. This is not wasteful stupidity. It is deliberate doctrine supported by industrial capacity we cannot match. Examples from captured documents. An American supply depot in Algeria stocked 45,000 vehicle tires. This single depot inventory exceeds our total monthly tire production for the entire Wehrmacht. American forces in North Africa consumed 15,000 tons of supplies daily at peak operations. This exceeds what we supply to our entire African theater monthly, and they sustained this consumption for weeks. Captured prisoners report receiving 3 full meals daily, including fresh meat, vegetables, and desserts. German soldiers receive 1,800 calories daily, often less in combat zones. American soldiers receive 4,000 calories and complain the food is monotonous. American motor pools stock complete replacement engines, transmissions, and axles for 10% of their vehicle fleet. We struggle to stock spare parts for individual repairs. The implications are strategic. American forces operate without resource constraints. They attack when they have tactical advantage, not when logistics permit. They retreat when defeated, not when supplies run out. Their operational tempo is limited by enemy action, not by supply shortages. German forces operate within severe resource constraints. We attack when fuel permits, not always when tactically optimal. We retreat when supplies are exhausted, even from tactically favorable positions. Our operational tempo is limited by logistics more than by enemy action. The Americans have designed a military system that treats supplies like ammunition, consumed without thought, replaced without difficulty. They built this system around standardization, mass production, and overwhelming industrial capacity. We cannot match this. Our industrial base, even with conquered territories, produces approximately 1/5 the output of American industry. Our vehicle designs are superior individually but incompatible systemically. Our maintenance requires skilled labor we lack. Our supply system is sophisticated but inadequate. Most concerning, the Americans are still ramping up production. 1943 output exceeds 1942, which exceeded 1941. They show no signs of reaching production limits. They are building industrial capacity faster than we can destroy it. The Jeep, analyzed in my previous report, symbolizes this disparity. They produce 3,000 per day. We produce 70 military vehicles per day total, all types. They build more of one vehicle type in one day than we build of everything in a week. Conclusion: we are losing the industrial war. Superior German tactics, training, and weapons cannot overcome American material superiority at this scale. Every month this continues, the disparity widens. Hoffmann's report reached the High Command in August 1943. It was reviewed by logistics staff, who confirmed his findings from their own sources. It was forwarded to Albert Speer, Minister of Armaments and War Production, who acknowledged the accuracy of the analysis. It was presented to Hitler, who rejected its conclusions as defeatist. The Führer insisted that German quality would overcome American quantity, that 1 German soldier equaled 5 American soldiers, that superior weapons and tactics would prevail. He ordered increased production through more efficient methods, longer working hours, better resource allocation. But he couldn't order the fundamental industrial capacity that American possessed and Germany lacked. By 1944, as Allied forces landed in Normandy with a logistics system that could supply millions of soldiers across open beaches. The reality Hoffmann had documented became undeniable to every German soldier. The Americans arrived with vehicles beyond counting, supplies beyond measuring, industrial capacity beyond comprehending. A German intelligence summary from July 1944, after examining captured American supply dumps in Normandy, revealed the extent of the disparity. The Americans operate supply dumps at battalion, regiment, division, corps, and army level. Each level maintains stocks that would supply a German division for weeks. We examined one corps-level fuel dump containing 2.8 million gallons of gasoline. This single location held more fuel than all German forces in France possessed. Vehicle parks contained thousands of trucks, jeeps, and trailers. Many appeared new, never used. Prisoners explained these were war reserve stocks, maintained in case of emergency. War reserve stocks, the concept of having supplies available that you don't immediately need because you might need them later. We have no such luxury. Most disturbing, prisoners expressed no concern about these vast supply concentrations being captured. They explained that losing one dump meant nothing. Replacements would arrive within days from England, where even larger stocks awaited. Several prisoners joked about German forces capturing supplies, saying we would finally eat decent food, and the Americans would just bring more. This is not bravado. This is confidence born from certainty that their industrial base can replace any losses. They are correct. We cannot win a war of attrition against such capacity. Major Hoffmann survived the war. In 1947, as part of American occupation government, he was hired to help rebuild German industry. In a 1949 interview with American industrial engineers studying post-war reconstruction, he reflected on his wartime analysis of American logistics. I examined the Jeep in 1942 and understood immediately that Germany would lose the war. Not because of the vehicle itself, but because of what it represented. The Americans had applied industrial mass production methods to military logistics at every level. They standardized everything: parts, procedures, training, supply. They designed for production volume over individual excellence. They built redundancy into every system. Most importantly, they had the industrial capacity to make this approach work. Standardization means nothing without factories to produce standardized parts. Redundancy is worthless without ability to create redundant systems. The Americans had both. German industry was superb at producing excellent individual products. We built the best tanks, the best aircraft engines, the most sophisticated optics. But we never learned to build them in the quantities needed for industrial warfare. We remained craftsmen in an era requiring factories. The Jeep taught me this lesson. It was not an excellent vehicle. It was an adequate vehicle built in quantities that made excellence irrelevant. That philosophy won the war. After the war, I helped rebuild German auto industry. We adopted American methods: standardization, interchangeable parts, assembly line production. The German cars we build now are reliable, affordable, available to ordinary workers. They are not craftsman-built masterpieces. They are mass-produced transportation. Exactly what the Jeep was. We learned the lesson, though it came too late to matter for the war. In industrial competition, whether military or economic, the side that can produce more adequate products defeats the side that produces fewer excellent products. The arithmetic is simple and ruthless. I spent 3 days in 1942 examining a small vehicle and wrote a report explaining why Germany would lose. Nobody wanted to hear it then, but the mathematics were undeniable. The Americans built 640,000 Jeeps during the war. We built approximately 50,000 Kübelwagens. They had 13 Jeeps for every one of our equivalent vehicles. And Jeeps were just one item. They had similar advantages in trucks, aircraft, ships, weapons, everything. You cannot win a war when your enemy has 13 times your logistics capacity. You can win battles through superior tactics. You can achieve impressive kill ratios through better training. But ultimately, the side with more supplies, more vehicles, more industrial capacity will win through attrition. The Jeep didn't win the war, but it symbolized the industrial philosophy that did. Mass production, standardization, adequate performance, overwhelming quantity. Against such an approach, German craftsmanship was beautiful but futile. The Jeep Hoffmann examined in the Egyptian desert in November 1942 was serial number 159432. Records show it was manufactured at the Willys Toledo plant on September 18, 1942, one of 1,020 Jeeps produced that day. After its capture and analysis by German forces, it was recaptured by British forces during the German retreat and returned to service. It operated in North Africa, Sicily, and Italy before being damaged beyond repair near Monte Cassino in January 1944. The vehicle was scrapped, its parts salvaged for repair of other Jeeps. By the time that specific Jeep was destroyed, American factories had produced another 420,000 vehicles to replace it. The Germans had analyzed the design, understood its implications, recognized their inability to match American production, and continued fighting a war the mathematics had already decided. In museums today, restored Jeeps sit as monuments to American industrial achievement. They are not impressive machines by modern standards. They are uncomfortable, crude, and simple, but they represent a philosophy that defeated Germany more thoroughly than any weapon. The application of mass production methods to military logistics, creating supply capacity that overwhelmed tactical excellence through sheer abundance. The German engineers who examined Jeeps during the war understood this immediately. They wrote reports explaining why German craftsmanship couldn't compete with American mass production. They documented the mathematics of inevitable defeat. Their analysis was accurate, thorough, and ultimately irrelevant. Because by the time Germany understood what American industrial capacity meant, the war was already lost. The Jeeps kept coming, thousands per day, carrying the supplies that would bury the Wehrmacht under an avalanche of adequate equipment produced in quantities that made German excellence strategically meaningless. Major Hoffmann had been right in 1942. The Jeep was evidence of an industrial philosophy Germany couldn't match. He just didn't know how completely right he was until he watched that philosophy expressed in the 640,000 vehicles, the millions of tons of supplies, the endless convoys that supported Allied victory. The Jeep that won the war wasn't any individual vehicle. It was the industrial system that could build 3,000 identical vehicles daily and sustain that production for 4 years. Against such capacity, German tactical brilliance was impressive but insufficient. The mathematics guaranteed it.